Welcome to the Reddit Chronicles. Today, we are reading from True Off My Chest. Our first post is by Inevitable Pain. One of my clients tried to get me fired because I didn't answer an email within 24 hours while I was on vacation. So for some context, I work at a small local company that specializes in web design and development. I mostly do marketing, advertising work, but I also have experience with building pages, fixing minor back-end issues, and have been with the company longer than most other employees, so I have a decent amount of knowledge about all of the tools programs we use, and I'll occasionally work on other types of projects when the rest of the team is busy. This last week was one such week. Our boss was out of town, our lead graphic designer was out on medical leave for surgery, I was going on a road trip from Thursday to Sunday, and then our lead developer got sick and had to take time off as well. It was crazy. I had told my boss and the team ahead of time that I was going to have service and would be checking my emails and would be available in the evenings for an hour or two if there was an emergency, but for the most part would not be working. This is important for later. This isn't something I had to do, but I personally head 2 departments, and with how many people were already out, I didn't mind checking in once a day or so and answering my emails at least. This story actually starts before my trip. On Tuesday, my boss sends me an email asking me to change up some titles and meta descriptions on a site. The client was being really antsy about it and wanted it done within a day or two, and it was a pretty quick task, so I finished it up that afternoon and emailed the client to let her know it had been done. She then comes back on Wednesday and goes, "Oh, I'm actually not sure on the wording of the titles. Can you remove those for now?" Annoying and a waste of my time, but sure, whatever. I remove the titles and email her again, telling her it's done. I check my email real quick before heading out Thursday, and there's an email from her about wanting a flyer changed as well on her site. She's asking if this is something I can do. I tell her yes, and that I'll contact her when I get it done. She doesn't mention anything about the titles, so I figured we're good on those. Then I leave for my road trip, and I forget to check my email on Friday. After all, I'm on vacation. I figure if there's a true emergency, they have my number, and TBH, I was pretty exhausted after all the hiking and sightseeing we did that day. I get up on Saturday morning to an absolute storm in my inbox. This woman didn't even wait a full 24 hours before sending me multiple emails and then emailing the company support number and both of my supervisors, including head boss, who was also out that week. Not only is she blowing up everybody's inboxes, she's making wildly outlandish claims in them, saying that she's asked me multiple times to remove the titles and I never did it. Which isn't true. She asked me once, I removed them same day. She's saying that I've been using her personal email and being unprofessional, which is the most absurd claim and also completely untrue. I luckily had CC'd my direct supervisor on all of those correspondences, so he can see that I never used her personal email. She also complained about, aka made up, a couple other things that I can't reveal for the sake of privacy, anonymity that had to do with the functionality of the site and the products they sell. Of course, this morning, I get a call from my boss asking me what the hell is going on because this client is freaking out and saying she wants him to fire me and that I've completely ignored her and left her website in an unusable condition. I tell him the whole story and clarify the timeline of events and the fact that all of the changes I made for her were extremely minor and had zero effect on the functionality or even appearance of her site. My boss has known me for over 4 years and knows I don't do bad work, so he says he'll talk to her and try to smooth things over and tell her that she can't talk to me that way. From now on, all communication with her will go through my boss, and if she can't learn to calm down and treat us with respect, we will likely be dropping her as a client. Our next post is by Membership Normal. I didn't warn my ex about her new boyfriend. Long ago, I, M27 at the time, was in a relationship with Ella, F25 at the time. We were together for a little more than 5 years. The relationship wasn't great, but it was far from terrible. Honestly, it lasted as long as it did out of comfort and familiarity rather than love. It should have ended at least 3 years before it did. Maybe then it would have been amicable. Over the last year we were together, Ella graduated college and went on to start her career. I still had a year of college to go. In her new job, she met a coworker, Frank, M26, at the time. They became work buddies and eventually started hanging outside of work. Ella had loads of other male friends. This never bothered me. When I first met Frank, something was different. I don't know how to accurately explain it. When he first shook my hand, it felt like the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. Something in his eyes felt hollow. Something in my gut didn't like him, and I had no rational reasoning for it. I talked to Ella about it. I told her I didn't like the guy and that something about him made me uncomfortable. She dismissed my completely unfounded concerns out of hand, and I let it go. Ella continued to invite him and other coworkers over to our place fairly regularly. We'd host some informal get-together at least twice a month. Frank seemed nice enough as I got to know him. He was polite, conversational, engaging. He could talk at length on almost any topic. He was obviously intelligent, sometimes to the point of hubris, but that strange gut feeling never went away. Well, at some point over that year, Ella and Frank began having an affair. The spring before my graduation, Ella broke up with me. She moved into the spare bedroom, and we tried to carry on as roommates friends. This kind of worked for a few weeks until I found out about the affair and that Ella had been cheating on me for nearly a year. I really lost my shit. I kicked Ella out of my apartment, and after she had finished moving her stuff out a few weeks later, I went completely no contact. Blocked her everywhere, even changed my phone number. For the next few months, Ella would occasionally reach out via email or people on the fringes of my social circles, apologizing for the affair and hoping that someday we could still be friends. I ignored all of them. Within a few months, she had stopped trying. Amidst all of this breakup turmoil, I graduated college and started a new job almost right away. I made my first work buddy, Quinn, another recent hire. I found out a few months later, near Christmas time, that Quinn and Frank went to high school together. Quinn validated my initial gut reaction to Frank. Quinn said he and others strongly suspected that Frank was a sociopath, or at least deeply not normal. Quinn told me that Frank had been disciplined multiple times for harassment, stalking, and assault of multiple classmates, resulting in multiple suspensions, interventions from CPS, and culminating in an expulsion before his senior year. He was the kid who threw rocks at dogs in a yard. Frank didn't have any friends because he was a creepy guy in high school. Apparently lots of therapy and going to college helped Frank blend in a bit better, or at least keep his hands to himself. So half-heartedly broke my no contact. I did not reach out, but I checked Ella's public social media. Her friends lists were all people who were friends of or family of Frank, and 0 men. Even her gay bestie of 10 years was gone. Even her mom was gone. All of her pictures were her and Frank. Any picture from before they got together was removed. It smelled a lot like social isolation and control. Admittedly, I was still bitter. My reaction was more akin to cheaters never win than any form of empathy. I re-blocked Ella and went on with my life, never really thinking about her again. 12 years passed. One day while browsing Reddit, I came across a story on Ask Reddit that seemed way too familiar. It was about a friend of Ella's that had died unexpectedly. We had been together a little more than a year when this event happened. I remembered the night she described, when she last saw her friend before his passing, and the aftermath very clearly. I checked the profile and was able to confirm with certainty it was Ella. Her profile was relatively new, but was full of stories of the abuse she had suffered for 10 years at the hands of her now ex-husband, Frank. This really screwed me up. When I met the guy, they first suspected he was crazy. When someone else that knew him suspected he was crazy, and when her public profiles showed evidence of the crazy, I did nothing. I don't know if Ella would have listened to anything I had to say, but I still feel guilty for not trying. Our next post is by Interesting Lock. My M29 little brother, M22, thinks I didn't notice how he cut corners for himself when we weren't doing well financially. Me and my little brother share an apartment together, and within the last 2 months, all bills were due at the same time, including electricity, gas, taxes, internet, and much more, and we had to pay a lot of extra for electricity, for example. The result was that although we both make a decent amount, our accounts were empty pretty quickly, and on top of that, me being a freelancer, I had some problems keeping my business on top. For these 2 months, my brother, who was employed, had to pay for almost everything, which was ironic, because before that I made more than him. And during that time I noticed something. He not only lost his financial freedom during this time, which is already huge, but even though he was responsible for paying everything, he still tried to make sure that I wouldn't have to give up my comfort. To give you an example, I tell you about our behavior when we went grocery shopping. Usually we've got enough to keep both of us fed for 2 weeks at least. But while I bought enough again so that I had something for 2 weeks, he bought much less. He bought so little that with 3 meals a day, he could get by for 3 to 4 days at most. He even told me that if I wanted to go grocery shopping more than twice a month, then we could do it, but then we just get something for me. But that wasn't the only thing. He had an appointment at the hairdresser and chiropractor. Cancelled it to save money for my orthodontist appointment, which he considered more important. These are just 2 of many things he did so that I don't lose my comfort. He even went this far to not get help because I was sick at the same time. In May, when we both got sick from COVID, he decided not to visit the doctor so that I could go. Next month I will make an amount which might be the biggest of this year so far. And as soon as I have money again, I'll make sure to pay him back everything. I'll make sure to get him an extra amount of groceries. I will pay for his appointments. He thinks I don't know, but I do, and I'm so grateful for having him as my brother. I don't take his efforts for granted. And I make sure he will see how much I appreciated it. Thank you for listening to the Reddit Chronicles. Follow for more content.